So, welcome to Fire and Water, the podcast, coming of age in this age with Quanita Robertson and myself, Tenneson Wolf, where we are cultivating wise leadership one show at a time. Hi, Quanita.
Hi, Tenneson.
What are we talking about today? What do we get to talk about today?
We're going to talk about initiation. When I talk to people about fire and water, often what comes up is what's rites of passage or what is initiation? And I just want us to share a little bit about what it means for us.
Good.
And so I'll start.
Mm-hmm.
Initiation to me is at least in the way that we're holding it, is the piece about growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Can we move from the adolescent culture we're in to our adult selves? And I think that for me, initiation is about meeting yourself. It's about a soul-to-soul meeting, your soul meeting itself, so that we're clear about the unique genius that we bring to the world. Do you add a layer?
Yeah, and I am thinking it out loud. Once upon a time, a really good friend of mine who's been a coach and a guide and just a key person in my life along the way. She talked about initiation, and she talked about it as a vibration, like coming to a higher vibration, I think is the language that she used, and being able to sustain more of that higher vibration. And in the context that she and I were speaking, I think we're probably talking about groups. We're probably talking about individuals in groups also. But that's always stayed with me. The experience, even though that language still sort of requires more, I relate to the feeling of, ooh, something more is happening here, and coming to this higher vibration with one another that can be held, like doesn't have to be dropped down off of the map again. There's something about that. And then the growing up part, like I always feel a bit excited and a little snooty when I use that language. And the excited part is it just feels true to me. Like, yeah, there's some growing up that needs to happen. To me, it's not hard to find a general societal narrative of adolescence or adolescence run amok, and the need to like grow up or mature. So, there's an excited part of that to me. The snooty side, or what sometimes feels snooty, is just like, okay, so what do you mean when you say growing up? One version of that to me, and I almost feel like I need to qualify it, we're all growing up. Yeah, it's a process. Yeah. But one version of that, one aspect of that to me feels like in these days, the ability to hold simultaneously conflicting truths or complex truths as being valid, as being the language fails here, but as being true. Like these things feel like opposites, and yet they're true. The ability to be in that kind of complexity feels like some of the growing up, and maybe becoming more familiar with that is part of like the initiatory experience. Can you recognize that and not be freaked out by it? And just so as to pull that down a little bit, I'm thinking of adolescence again, being with my kids, or probably reflecting in my own life along the way. I can see how my youngest right now really struggles with that notion of, well, wait a minute, if this is true, then this can't be true. And he can't, like his brain can't quite hold that right now. I think he will be able to hold that, or he does in some ways already. But with age, I don't know if that's true. With growing up, with maturing, I think one aspect of that is developing the ability to like dwell in all of that complexity without needing to reduce it down to a right or wrong, good or bad, A or B, black or white kind of thing. That feels super needed in the times that we live in.
I think about Sabong Fusome. One of the things that she says in Women's Wisdom from Africa is that initiation requires you for more trouble, or that you get kind of baptized into being able to have more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And what she means is that it's a deeper container.
Mm-hmm.
I I do think that we are in such an adolescent culture.
Mm-hmm.
And in my own journey of learning, of growing up, of stepping more into who I am, initiation for me has required me to move from being earth-centered and led in my decision making, mm-hmm. to being spirit-centered and led in my decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that I ignore my earthly needs, or that I don't think food, water, shelter, basic needs are important. Mm-hmm. It just means that it doesn't lead the decision making. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a certain point where, when we're making decisions from our earthly needs, what we do is we betray the spiritual needs, mm-hmm. every time. Mm-hmm. And we'll betray what I consider our bigger heart. Mm-hmm. We'll betray our choice. We'll betray our own intuition, and we'll betray our divine guidance. Mm-hmm. And so, and we all have access to those things, mm-hmm. Because I also believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience and not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And so stepping more and more into being led by our own divine guidance. Mm-hmm. And I think that requires some growth and some growing up.
Mm-hmm. Question? Mm-hmm. So yes, lots of language in there that feels appealing. The betrayal of stuff, that was in there. Divine guidance, that's in there also. You and I have already begun hosting this Fire and Water leadership program, Cohort, initiation, rite of passage. How would you connect the conversation that we are having out loud now around initiation into Fire and Water?
Well, I think that we've set it up as not only leadership, but rite of passage.
Yeah.
And my hope is that the 20 people who are on this journey with us, that at the end of our journey, our 16 months together, what they will feel is that they've met more of themselves, mm-hmm. is that they're more capable. I'll go back to your language around the vibration. Mm-hmm. They're more capable of making choices from that higher vibrational energy, mm-hmm. than where they feel like they're at now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that...
Because it's familiar for them, because
yes.
like they've maybe remembered it or encountered it within the group, or
yes.
or experienced something and said, oh, that's what that was even outside of the group.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think that because I think we know it when we feel it. It's kind of, it's hard to describe. And I think the sacred often is.
Yeah.
When you get into the sacred, we go into metaphor. It's like, because there's not real words, because it's not grounded here, Mm-hmm. And so I think we just show up together, mm-hmm. to mm-hmm. get a bigger sense of what that vibrational energy is, mm-hmm. because we experience it in reflection with each other. Mm-hmm. And it might remind us that we've already experienced that before, mm-hmm. which then helps us to find it ourselves a little bit easier.
Right. And not unintentionally deny or betray the intuition,
yes.
as you were saying before.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
When I think of transitions, when I think of initiations, I think of transitions. And in a super broad kind of way, there are a lot of ways that we human beings mark transitions. So I'm thinking of simple things now, like, it's your birthday. Yeah. We ought to take you out for lunch, or have a coffee, or have a party, or like we do things. We follow an instinct, mm-hmm. that says we ought to mark this. And some of those are more significant than others. There's kind of all this weird societal stuff of you're 18, now you're an adult, or you're 21, or there's other namings. Those are superficial things to me, or they appear more superficial. perhaps what's happening with fire and water is that in the communal experience, we are encouraging the courage or honesty, the transparency, if you will, of remembering more of this heart space, spirit space, collaboration space, because I want to pull it down also to, well, I'm not sure I totally want to pull it down, but it applies to me at the level of what any of us do with our teams, what any of us do with our families, what any of us do with our communities or our organizations.
Yes.
Restoring and knowing how to carry that memory and invite it / invoke it with others. Like someone who knows how to do that or knows how to do more of that feels like, whoa, what a gift to leadership in this community or this family or this team.
Well, I think that's why it's important to me.
Yeah,
I mean, that if we don't have initiated adults, we can't have initiated elders, and we can't initiate the youth.
Yeah.
And we have a need to have more people in our communities who are looking internally and who are, capturing some of their own genius as well as bringing it back to their communities. Because part of the growing up, I think, is knowing what you have to offer and bringing it back to your communities and sharing it. It's that leadership from a place of wisdom.
Yeah, for all of us.
Yes.
Beautiful. Fire and Water, you and I have created this offering, and we've begun to do things like this, things like we're talking about, to be in the mystery of it, to be in the daringness of it, the straightforwardness of it, as it pertains to initiation today. Anything else you want to add?
I think just that it's full of mystery.
Yeah.
It's full of mystery. And one of the things that I think we've lost, which we'll save for another day and another conversation, is the importance of guides on the journey. We're in a culture that thinks that we can do things by ourselves. But there's something about initiation that requires guides, because you can't take yourself someplace you haven't been.
That's good. And thus we begin.
Yeah.
Good for today.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you to those of you listening. Thanks for joining today to this Fire and Water podcast. Thanks for being in the practice of cultivating wise leadership, for being guides and sometimes being guided. If you'd like more information about what Quanita and I are offering through Fire and Water, our shared website on this is fireandwaterleadership.weebly.com. Thanks for joining today.
Bye.